Hello everyone, welcome back to OCD Recovery's YouTube channel. Before I go any further, you could please subscribe down below. A lot of videos going up by myself a lot lately. I always tell people if you have any questions on stuff you want to learn about, we have a really good forum on Facebook called OCD Recovery Facebook group. There's almost 13,000 members. We have about 11 or 12 moderators, so we keep down reassurance and help guide people on the path to recovery. The Instagram page by OCD Recovery, run by Rob, and the whole entire organization is just really good. There's a lot of great resources out there. The reading list on OCDRecovery.com, stuff for families and friends and so forth. Now, today I have a video that I have been asked to do by a lot of people in the last couple months. I knew this one wasn't going to be one where I was sitting at my desk or one where I was out in the mountains. I knew I was going to take my time on this one because it's something that not just OCD sufferers deal with because we have a disorder, but basically the majority of anyone who's a human being that's living. As Dr. Albert Ellis from the reading list, the first two books in the reading list, realized in 70 years of psychotherapy is that humans are really gullible, humans are really fallible, and humans are just naturally very irrational, usually because it has more to do with comfort, black and white thinking, doesn't really take any critical analysis and stuff like that. It's multifactorial. It's just a lot easier to be irrational than to be rational sometimes until you start to develop these philosophies. Now, what I'm going to talk about today is perfection and how it bleeds basically irrational beliefs, or how your irrational beliefs actually breed perfectionism, so back and forth. So here's why we struggle. And this is all humans, not just OCD recovery sufferers or OCD sufferers and stuff like that, is some of the beliefs that we have, one being I must always do well. Remember, the musts, shoulds, and oughts are what get people into trouble and breed these irrational beliefs that usually have psychological detrimental to our health, especially OCD sufferers. So I must never make mistakes. We live in a society right now where mistakes are absolutely vilified anywhere we are. People are walking on eggshells, and it's not actually the mistake in a lot of ways. It's the belief we attach to the mistake, because humans are fallible and we always make mistakes. Whether it's someone that you're working under holding a belief on you, or you holding a belief on your coworkers, for an example, or your friends, or anything you do in life, taking a test, usually if you make a mistake and you unconditionally accept yourself, you might not like the mistake itself, but you won't write yourself off as a human, and it won't actually proceed to chronic guilt, shame, or anxiety. That's the missing factor that a lot of people get wrong. Society likes to blame the mistake. It has nothing to do with the mistake. Humans will always make mistakes. Now, would it be better if humans never made mistakes? Sure, but humans usually learn the most from mistakes, so mistakes have absolute validity in them. So what I'm going to talk about here is the major areas where I see perfectionistic beliefs really tend to affect OCD sufferers specifically and the general public. So we're going to talk about social media, work, sports in the gym, relationships and religion. And I put money up there, but I'm not going to talk about money, but there's plenty of irrational beliefs based around money. There's a lot of people telling you how you need to spend your money. You might be reckless with your money, but then you tell yourself, I must not do that. You're just a human who spent money recklessly in that situation. You can always start saving again, but we vilify ourselves and we write ourselves off as human beings because we have these irrational beliefs based around these large concepts. The reason why these concepts tend to create the most perfectionistic beliefs is a lot of it is superficial and materialistic. A lot of people attach their identities to these problems and they get very emotional and they don't tend to think in a rational manner. So let's talk about the number one most important thing on here, and that's social media. Now, before I go any further, I want to say that social media is not inherently good or inherently bad. Can social media have a plethora of negative impacts on people's lives? Absolutely. Social media addictions, passive coping mechanisms, and all sorts of stuff that doesn't really get you where you want to go. And a lot of people don't want to talk about that because there's a lot of people out there that will say stuff like, oh, like in the workplace, you have to market on social media 10 hours a day. You don't have to do anything. So it's one of the biggest sources of conditional acceptance. That's the big problem with social media. It's a breeding ground for conditional acceptance. And where does that come in? Filters, angles, lighting, and many photos. So OCD suffer or not, there's nothing inherently wrong with taking pictures of yourself in a bikini or a picture of yourself, when you think you look good. But the problem is, and it's what everyone does, is they attach their whole entire self-meaning to the way they look on social media. So you might get an Instagram influencer who will take the same picture in 15 different angles because they have to look the best. That right there is conditional acceptance. There's no way around it. We have a belief of what we must look like. And it actually doesn't matter if society puts that belief onto you. What matters is the way that you respond through rational emotive behavioral therapy, which is now cognitive behavioral therapy, and just seeing things in the rational light through Stoicism and Greek and Roman philosophy. So that's really how you basically start working towards unwinding these fears. Now, this can really go into plastic surgery as well. Now, people will get kickback if they get facial disfigurement, maybe in a motor vehicle accident. Sure. The problem is you can learn to accept yourself no matter what you look like. The reality is this. We're humans who have a brain and a nervous system, and our body is just the source of how we get around. And that's it right there. It's nothing more. Being in shape is cool. There's a lot of benefits with health. It's cool to get some muscle on you, and maybe you want to look a little better. But the problem is you put that on your identity. So you say, I must look better. And if I don't look better, then I can't accept myself. And that's the problem right there. So challenges. You don't need to do challenges on social media. Most people are living their lives entirely too much on social media. Now, social media needs a balance. You wouldn't walk around all day with a flask in your pocket, but people do that all day with social media. There's levels of difficulty to it. If you have more of an addictive personality like I do, you might need to be a little bit better with balance. But the reality is anyone that's like social media is 100% good or social media is 100% bad, you get that a lot with coffee on YouTube. Like, quitting coffee is the best thing you could do. Be very, very careful when you see black and white statements. It's too individual and to person. But what we know, what is not really black and white, is that social media is by the majority, conditional acceptance. You don't need to post in your life. You're not missing out on anything like you think. And even if you were missing out on everything, all the news, everything, you could still live with that while it will be uncomfortable in a way. And balance is key. Social media will need some sort of a balance. If we don't have the balance down, it can get out of control, especially with OCD. Work. Now, this one I've definitely gotten kickback on. The reality is there's a way to look at things rationally, and then there's a way to not look at things rationally from the sense of how we approach things through the teachings of Dr. Albert Ellis. So usually the perfectionistic beliefs surrounding work come from the fear of rejection, the fear of judgment, and the fear of being canceled. Now, Sadie did a really good video on cancel culture. Whilst I don't agree with the cancel culture philosophy, it's probably one of the most irrational things that's not putting us in society the way that we need to be, in my opinion. I'm willing to hear any talk back on that, but that is conditional acceptance. Cancel culture is conditional acceptance. And it also makes you believe that humans don't make mistakes, which is not. It really comes down to unconditional self, making mistakes, unconditional accepting yourself, unconditionally accepting others if they make mistakes, because people get annoyed. They're like, that person must have done that assignment, like people on team members. And then unconditional life acceptance. I want to stop here for a second, and I want to really I want to choose my words carefully in this because I've gotten a lot of kickback on this as well. This is the reality of life. Yes. Could you do whatever you wanted, whenever you wanted, at any time you want? Yes. As a human, you could do that. People have done that. Look at what Hitler did. He killed millions and millions of people. It wasn't a beneficial thing, but he did it. The problem is, just because you can do something whenever you want doesn't mean it has beneficial results to your life. This is where people get this wrong. I'm going to say it again. Just because you can do X things in your life doesn't mean it's beneficial for you or others around you. So people get very upset. When you are an employee, the reality is you cannot do whatever you want to do. If you do want to do whatever you do, so people go, I'm going to go start a business. Guess what? I'm a business owner with my wife. You still can't do whatever you want to do all the time. It's an illusion, and it also breeds low frustration tolerance. It is a breeding ground. We live in a society right now where we are completely encapsulated in low frustration tolerance and trying to change the outside to change the inside. You must, you must do everything I say. That's not true, because in this country, America, we have what's called freedom of association, and they can just fire you. And it's grounds for legal firing. So you can't just do what you want to do. We're not talking about being vulnerable or being open about your mental health. And trust me, anyone that knows me knows I'm really big about company culture. It's more than likely, statistically speaking, one of the most important things in company success. And the VOI, which is called the value of your investment, not just the ROI, which is more stuck on monetary value. So you can't just do what you want all the time. You could. You can physically do what you want all the time. But when you have that mentality, it breeds low frustration tolerance. It breeds beliefs like, I must be able to do whatever I want whenever I can. Trust me, if Erica was standing here right next to me, she would say, I struggle with this so much. This is so key, ladies and gentlemen, key. So, and the belief about mistakes. Even if someone, everyone at your work demonized you for making mistakes, you could still completely accept yourself with that condition. I'm not saying it would be enjoyable, but you could do it. Ooh, let me get my water. We're out of coffee. Gotta go to the grocery store and get coffee. That's like DEFCON 1. So you can always accept yourself in these situations. Would it be nice if you never made mistakes? Sure. Would it be nice if no one else made mistakes? Sure. Should you even shoot for perfection? No. You should shoot for task perfection, not self-perfection. That sentence actually just came straight out of how to stubbornly refuse to make yourself miserable about anything. Yes, anything. Sports in the gym. Now, I'm going to go really, really in depth on body dysmorphic disorder, and then OCD and how it ties to the fear of rejection and looks and stuff like that. So it really comes down to the fear of rejection and the fear of judgment, basis off of conditional self-acceptance, competition, and all in black and white thinking. Now, anecdotally, we see this over the years. People that dedicate their entire lives to sports don't always have the best mental health. Who dedicate their whole entire life to the gym. I know lots of people that do this, not the best mental health. Now, you can do this as a human. You have the right to do this if you want, but there might be some psychological consequences because it's very black and white. It's very black and white. Very. So Albert Ellis noticed that when you put your entire life emphasis on something, you might have to accept that you might not have balance. And that's a huge thing for people. They don't always like the fact that they can't balance things because they're all or nothing. The athletes in the CrossFit Games, absolutely. Mind you, I love competition. I think competition can create some really good camaraderie, just good community stuff. But the problem is the belief you hold around competition. So if you lose, I've heard someone in the CrossFit Games, who I like a lot, say that when he got second place at the CrossFit Games, he didn't even care and how disappointed he was because he should have been first. That is ridiculous. That's a ridiculous belief system that will actually get you in trouble down the road. So again, like, fighting is irrational, but doesn't mean it's not fun to watch. I love watching MMA. I love watching boxing, but there is a give or take that you're going to have to accept. You could do something in an unbalanced manner and accept that and accept the consequences. That's a totally different video. So relationships and religion. Before I talk about anything with religion, I just want to say you as a human are allowed to believe whatever you want. There's nothing wrong with having faith. There's nothing wrong with believing in a God or whatever you believe in. The problem is when your beliefs go to stuff like this. The one, my God must be correct. Or you must know for certain if you are going to, say, burn in hell for eternity. These certainties and these musts of knowing, same thing in the relationship. You're looking for certainty. I must know if my boyfriend or girlfriend's never going to leave me. I must know if they've ever cheated on me. And then you can put in false memory. So what happens if I did cheat on my boyfriend or my girlfriend and stuff like that? But the main thing I want to talk about with perfectionism, with relationships and religion, is it could never be perfect because it's irrational to begin with. The concept of certainty and perfectionistic beliefs surrounding someone you are in a relationship with, or someone that you pray to will get you in trouble if you have OCD. You do not need to give up religion. What you might want to give up is the dogmatic absolutes you're looking for. Now, this doesn't mean you can't look for truths and you can't look into the past to study scriptures and stuff like that. But people get so attached in their identity with these things. This is when things really, really start to fall over. And it can be really problematic for someone. You know, the fairy tale stuff with relationships. We have been bred our whole lives since we were kids to just like look at these movies and these perfect scenarios, and none of those exist. It's all a fallacy, and it's completely irrational. And then the no mistakes. You know, like, my God makes no mistakes and stuff like that. Well, if you have OCD, you'll be looking for certainty, and that's not good either. I have to say it for a fifth time. You don't have to give up your religion. You don't have to give up your faith. I myself, I'm not religious. I don't believe in anything after death, and that's just my belief. And people can believe what they want. But the problem is, if I was to say I must know for sure that that's what happens after I die, that's when I get in trouble. Because I may well certainly die and then shoot up to some place and they'll be like, you were wrong. And I'll be like, oh, I was wrong. So now we have to go over how to actually get over your irrational beliefs. So this is from the first couple books in the reading list, the A, B, C's, and the G's. So we all have goals as humans to usually be reasonably happy and to stay alive and to live a prosperous life where we're content. And then we have activating events. So activating events for us would be developing chronic OCD, or maybe getting into a car accident, or developing GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, developing PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So, and then what we believed for a while from the Freudian way of thinking and psychoanalysis is that the activating event caused the C. So because I'm not in shape, I'm depressed. Because I lost muscle, I'm depressed. No. The belief you hold is the primary reason, because you believe that you must be in shape. There's nothing wrong with having goals and desires. There's nothing inherently wrong with wanting to be competitive. The problem is nobody does these things separate from who they are. They attach their entire identity to these things, especially in sports. Do you know how many people we've seen in sports retire and then spiral into depression, spiral into areas where they unfortunately take their lives and everything like that? It's because they've attached themselves. They attach their entire identity to what they do. This is completely irrational and gets a lot of people in trouble. If you do this, I highly suggest you work on it. So let me give the one for like myself, because I struggled severely and still do with body stuff. I don't like when I have fat on my body, but I can always work at my lifestyle and getting myself in shape. But if I never reach my goals, it's okay. It may be comfortable, but what people do is, and I explain to people in the WhatsApp group all the time, I explain to people as best as I can on the Instagram and in the Facebook group, people will attach a rational belief to a rational belief. So they'll say something like, I don't like the fat on my body. Instead of, even if I never reach my goals, it's okay, they'll say something like, I don't like the fat on my body, comma, but I must not feel it. They'll have a rational belief that starts off good and then attach an irrational belief to it. And then they get confused because they're like, I'm disputing, but you're not really. So I don't like mistakes. I would prefer to work at task perfection. But even if I make mistakes, and even if I never reach task perfection, it might make me uncomfortable, but I can stand it. Now I'm coming up on 20 minutes right here, so I did want to end the video. So thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe down below like I always say at the end. The reading list on, so the How to Stubbornly Refuse to Make Yourself Miserable and the Myth of Self-Esteem are exactly how you're going to learn to implement this. And then remember, you're not just going to recover by reading a book. You'll have to actually, you'll have to go about it in a way to where you have to start adopting these philosophies. So thank you so much for watching and have a great day.